Don't forget to like and subscribe to Jolie Knots Crochet. Share with your friends. Hit that little notification bell so you can get notified when new patterns release. All our videos are available in left and right-handed tutorials.
Hi everyone, welcome back to Jolie Knots Crochet. I'm Crystal and today we are going to be making this chunky every other day sweatshirt. Now the sweatshirt is a pullover. We're going to work it in one piece and you do have the option to use either a 5-weight or a 6-weight yarn. With the 6-weight yarn, your stitches will be tighter and your sweater will be more bulky. With the white yarn that you see here in this sweatshirt, this one is a 5-weight yarn. You'll see that the drape is much smoother. The sizing seems to be a little bit different only because of the drape, but my gauge was exactly the same. So, the way that we're going to be working this pattern is in one piece, like I said. We're going to first work the front panel all the way up to the neckline and leave a slit. And then we're going to work the back panel and we'll work down there. We'll make sure to do the bands after that, sew up the sides, and then get started on our arms. The yarn that I use today is Bernat Softy Chunky yarn. Now, the color I'm using is Velvet Teal. This one right here is a size child large, and out of one skein this is all that I have left of this. So if you're making this for a child, then 14 ounces and 431 yards will be just fine. I did make this one with the same yarn for an adult in a large, extra large size, and I used 2 entire skeins of the Bernat Softy Chunky. Okay, and the hook that we're going to be using today is a 10mm hook, whether you're using a 5-weight yarn or a 6-weight yarn. You'll use a 10mm hook. You'll need 4 stitch markers and your tapestry needle. Alright, everybody go ahead and get your materials and let's get started. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is get started on our chain. Now, as far as the sizing goes, I'm going to make the smallest size that I have. Now, I will leave the starting chain count in the description box below. We are going to double crochet into the 3rd chain from the hook. Our 2 chains previous to this is not going to count as a stitch. Alright, now you're going to chain 1, skip 1 chain, and put a single crochet into the next chain. Chain 1, skip 1 chain, double crochet into the next. Chain 1, skip 1, single crochet. So you should be doing chain 1, skip 1, double crochet, chain 1, skip 1, single crochet, chain 1, skip 1, double crochet. Very, very simple, easy pattern. We're working into the chain spaces now, and when we get to when we start coming back around, we will also be working into these spaces. So go ahead and finish that to the end of your chain. You should be ending on a single crochet into your last chain space. Okay, go ahead and do that and I'll meet you back for row 2. Here I am at the end of my first row. I have 1 chain left. I should have 1 double crochet right before my last chain. And I'm going to put a single crochet in there. Now, this is going to be your repeat row. You're going to chain 2, turn your work, and we're going to double crochet into our first stitch, which is our single crochet. We're going to chain 1, skip 1 stitch, which is your double crochet, and into your chain space, you're going to put a single crochet. chain one, skip your single crochet, double crochet into the next space. So essentially it's the same as before, but instead of working in our chain spaces, instead of working in our chains, now we're working in our chain spaces. So double crochet, chain one, skip one, single crochet, chain one, skip one, double crochet, chain one, skip one, single crochet. So you're going to do that all the way down to the end. We're currently working on our front panel. This is going to be a child size that I'm making. So I'm going to make my rows approximately 20 rows, or to the length that I want my sweater in the front. And then we will create a slit opening and then continue to work the back panel. So if you are making for a child, like I said, approximately 20 rows. For an adult, you're going to go approximately 35 to 40, or really just depending on what you desire for the sweater that you're making. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and finish out my 20 rows since I'm making a child size, and I'll meet you back and we'll work the slit opening together. Okay, so I have my 20 rows tall for a child size. I found my center piece and I've marked it. When you're calculating your stitches for your child size, you want your neck opening to be approximately half the size of your starting row, but of course centered. So with this one, my starting chains were 36. So half of that, I want my neck opening to be about 16 or 17 stitches wide. So I'm just going to count these out, mark my 2 spots, and continue on with my pattern, and then chaining and continuing my pattern. Okay, now I've completed the opening for my neck. What I'm going to do is turn my work and continue working into my pattern for my back panel. So we've just completed the front panel. And now for our back panel, we're going to make it for children about 2 or 3 rows longer on the back than you have in the front. For adults, you're going to go maybe about 3 or 4 rows a little bit longer, or until the desired length that you want. So just continue working your pattern. You'll work over your chain spaces just like you did in your beginning, and working into the chain spaces at your beginning and starting chain. You'll do the same thing after or through your neck opening. So working into your chain spaces, you are double crocheting, chain 1, skip 1, single crochet, and so on and so forth with your regular pattern. Once you have your entire front panel and your entire back panel completed, then I will meet you back here so we can get our arm sizing and sew up the sides. Okay, now I've just completed the back panel. I made my back panel 23 rows and my front panel is 21 rows. Now I'm going to work on the bottom band. Now the way that we're going to do these bottom bands is initially you're going to have your chain 2 to begin. Now we're going to double crochet 2 together over the next 2 stitches. So your single crochet and your double crochet. Pull through all loops. So you have 2 double crocheting 2 together. We're decreasing with every 2 stitches. We're turning every 2 stitches into 1. Double crochet 2 together. We're going to do that all the way until the end of the row. Okay, so I've just completed my last double crochet 2 together. You should have double crochet 2 together over every 2 stitches all the way down. Okay, you're going to turn your work, chain 2, and we're going to double crochet 2 together over the next 2 stitches. So this one and this one. Now we are going to double crochet one double crochet into every stitch until you have 2 stitches left. Here I am at the end. I've got 2 stitches left, and I'm going to do my last double crochet 2 together. So you should have decreased 1 stitch on the end and 1 stitch at the beginning by double crocheting 2 together over the first 2 stitches and the last 2 stitches. Okay, so those are the first 2 rows of our bottom band. Now we're going to repeat this second row one more time. I'm working a child size, so I'm going to have 3 rows for my bottom band in the back, and then I'm just going to do these 2 rows in the front because we want our back to be longer than our front. Now if you're working an adult size, you're going to repeat this row 2 more times, so you'll have 4 rows in the back and 3 rows in the front. So I'm going to work my last row here, which is a repeat of the last one, chaining 2 and double crocheting 2 together over the next 2 stitches, and then putting 1 double crochet into each of the next following stitches all the way into the end until you have 2 stitches left. Here I am at the end of my row. I have 2 stitches left, and I'm going to do my last double crochet 2 together. And this is going to complete the bottom of my band for my child size. Now remember, if you're doing an adult size, you're going to repeat that row one more time. Go ahead and fasten off, and now I'm going to work on my front. So I'm going to attach my yarn, making sure that I'm on the right side. So I'm just going to tie my yarn together here from my end piece, so I have one less end to weave in. Okay, and now I'm going to chain 2. That's just going to bring me up to the height that I need. And now, just like we did on the other side, the first row of our band is to double crochet 2 together over the next 2 stitches, and then again double crocheting 2 together over the next 2 stitches all the way to the end. So I'm doing it for the band here, and because I repeated row 2 2 times in the back, I'm going to repeat it only 1 time in the front. So here I have my front and my back panel done. You'll notice that my back panel is longer than my front panel. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to find and mark the stitches of where we're going to sew up for our arm on the side. Okay, so now I'm going to take the longest side of my sweatshirt. I have 26 rows because we did 23 rows of the pattern and then 3 rows of the band. So from our 26, I'm going to take about 1/3 of that. It's going to be about 9 rows. Now I want my arm to be a little bit bigger than that, so I'm going to go to 10 rows. And what I'm going to do is, from our first stitch marker here in the corner, I'm going to count 10 rows down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And I'm going to place my stitch marker. Now I'm going to count 10 rows down from the side or the back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, get my stitch marker to bring both of those together. So this is going to be my arm opening for a child size small medium. And it's about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, about 7 inches long, which is a pretty okay size. You can go smaller if you like, you can go bigger if you like. It's not a definite, you must do this. What you must do is make sure that both sides have the same amount of rows. So I'm going to count 10 rows down again on both sides, and I'll meet you back here so we can whip stitch it together. Okay, so now that I've got these counted on both sides, I'm going to remove the stitch marker up here because we don't need that anymore. I'm going to come here, and I want to make sure that when I'm sewing my pieces up that I'm not left uneven here at the end on both sides. So I'm going to count my rows down. Only when I count my rows down here, I want to make sure that my sweatshirt has an opening. So I'm only going to count up to 2 rows before my front ends, and that's where we're going to connect them. We'll connect them there, and we'll have this opening from the front to the back. So go ahead and count down your rows so that you have the correct amount of rows on one side and on the other side. Okay, so now that I have where I want to sew up my side seams right here, I'm going to take a long piece of yarn and I'm going to use a yarning needle or a tapestry needle or a darning needle, whatever it is that everybody wants to call them. And I'm just going to go from one side to the next. Leave some space for you to weave in your end. And I'm just going to go around and around and around, making sure that I don't go ahead too many stitches from the other side and we don't get uneven. So you're just going to do this and stitch them all up together between your stitch markers, and then meet me back so we can get started on the arms. Okay, I have finished sewing my seams up. I've attached my yarn to get started at the arm in the armpit. So, making sure that your work is the right way out, you're going to chain 2. Once you attach your yarn, chain 2. Now what we're going to do is we are going to go around our armhole and we're going to put 1 double crochet into every row. So we'll put 1 double crochet into the single crochet, we'll put 1 double crochet around the chain 2, single crochet, chain 2, single crochet, chain 2, all the way around. So we're only having 1 double crochet per row. Okay, now that I have double crocheted all the way up to my last stitch coming around, I'm going to find the top of my first double crochet and I'm going to slip stitch. Pull that tight. So here's what the first round of your arms will look like. Now for round 2 is going to be a decrease row. We're going to be switching off 2 decrease rows and then 1 non-decrease row. So let me show you what the decrease row is going to look like. We are going to chain 2 and skipping this first double crochet here, working in between the first and the second one, we're going to put a double crochet. Just like that. And we're going to double crochet not into the stitch, but in between each double crochet all the way around. And when we get to the end, I will show you how we're going to decrease our stitch. Okay, so here we are at the end of our decrease row. Now our last double crochet is going to fall in between the last 2 double crochets. And the way that we're decreasing is we're not adding the double crochet at the end after your last double crochet. So you should have 1 double crochet left before you get to your chain 2, and we're just going to leave that space blank. Slip stitch to the top of your first double crochet, pull it tight, chain 2, and repeat that row over again. Now, like I said earlier, you're going to have 2 rows of decreasing, 1 row of non-decreasing. So let me finish out my second row of decreasing, and I'll show you guys exactly what I mean for your row of non-decrease. So row 1 is not decreasing. Row 2 is decreasing. Repeat row 2. Okay? Now, I'm going to meet you back here at the end of your 4th row. So you should have a regular row, decrease, decrease, and then your 4th row is going to start exactly the same. We're just going to end it differently. So I'm going to meet you back here right at the end of your non-decrease row. Okay, here I am at the end of my 4th round, which should be a non-decrease round. Now the way I'm going to do that is my last double crochet is going to go in between my chain 2 and my last double crochet from the previous round. And now I'll slip stitch again to the top of the double crochet to join, chain 2, and continue on my way, doing 2 rounds of decreasing and then 1 round of non-decreasing. So if you can tell here, your non-decrease round is going to have that extra double crochet after your last double crochet. The other ones do not. They stop right before your last double crochet. So finish that out until you get to the length of the sleeves that you like, and then you'll just finish it off with single crochet all the way around into each stitch. All right? Okay, so I have just completed the last row of my arm. Now instead of chaining 2 after I slip stitch, I'm going to chain 1, and then I'm going to put single crochets in between every double crochet, and that's how I'm going to do my other arm as well. So finish out this arm, work on your other arm, and pay extra caution to make sure that in your starting row, in your starting round for your arm, that you have the same exact amount of double crochets as in your first arm, and that way you won't be lopsided. So finish those out, and then I will meet you back for our last step to work around the neckline. Okay, now that we have gotten our sleeves done, the last step of our process is to single crochet around our neck opening. So I'm going to join my yarn over my double crochet here at the side and put a single crochet. Now I'm going to skip every single double crochet and single crochet, and I'm going to only single crochet into the chain spaces. No chains in between, skipping the double crochet, going into the chain space, single crochet, skipping the single crochet, going into the next chain space, and that's it. We're just skipping all of the stitches and single crocheting only into our chain spaces. So you'll do that all the way around. And when you get to the end, you will just slip stitch to join. And then you'll be finished.